Public CEO Report is a podcast that provides insights about the public sector and public policy for the benefit of decision makers and leaders powering our communities. I'm your host, Ryder Todd Smith, and today we're joined by Kyria Martinez, the County Administrative Officer for the County of Kings. Kyria, welcome to the Public CEO Report.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I mean, we are public CEO, and who better to be a public CEO than the county administrative officer for a county? Like, that is effectively the epicenter of what public CEO is all about. So it's great to have a executive like yourself on to have a conversation. I'm a little bit familiar with the County of Kings because we, in my other life as Tripepi Smith, we had an opportunity to work on your redistricting process. Now it seems like a couple years ago. And so it's good to be back chatting with you. You are new to the role of the county administrator, right? How long have you been in the seat?
So effectively, I was acting as of April 1st, and then I was actually a permanent position as of June 12th. Okay,
so you had a 2-month interview and you clearly crushed it, so they gave you the job.
Correct, yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome to the big seat. So tell me about your career path. How'd you end up in local government? And how'd you maneuver your way on up to finding yourself as the chief administrative officer?
So my government career actually started 10 years ago. Prior to that, for 6 years, I worked in the private sector while I was going to school. And I was just finished my master's program, and I was actually starting an internship in Tulare County. And I started at the Board of Supervisors there, and was hired on immediately as a deputy clerk for the Board of Supervisors. So I worked there, learning the agenda process, what a Board of Supervisor does. Mm-hmm. It was probably the best experience because you're actually seeing the action items that come to the board. You're clerking the board. I learned about assessment appeals, moved on from there. We had a department that was actually establishing their economic development office. So the county pays into an economic development corporation. And so at the time, the CAO and for Tulare County felt that there wasn't enough outreach for county. So at the time, a county economic development office was established. And so they said, hey, we need staffers. You just graduate with your master's. This will be a great opportunity. So I started there. In the Resource Management Agency, which is a agency developed of public works, planning, economic development. And I was there as an analyst. I started as a staff analyst, and I was promoted to economic development analyst. I ended up leaving as a senior economic development analyst. Then I came over to Kings County in 2017, and I've been here ever since. I started in Kings County as an administrative analyst and worked my way up into ultimately becoming the assistant county administrative officer, which is the number 2 in command. And I was in that role for approximately 3 years until the opportunity for the CAO position came open, and I thought it was my time. I've seen different administrations. In Tulare County, I was under 2 different administrations. In Kings County, I saw 3 different administrations. So I do believe I was prepared. And so that's really how I started my career path into local government. I've always been into local government. I actually wanted to be an attorney. So when I was in between, after I finished my undergrad, I was in a prep course for the LSAT for to get into law school. And I was in that stage where I was going to either get my master's or get or go into law school. I was already working full time, and it was just, at the time of my life, I couldn't not work. So, I took the master's program because it was an evening program and allowed me still to continue working. And so ultimately, that's how I ended up in local government.
So just real quick, where were you born and raised? Where'd you grow up?
So I was born and raised in Visalia. Okay. So that is a neighboring city from here in Hanford, Tulare County. I went to high school there. I went to community college there. I went to college at California State University, Bakersfield, CSUB. Mm-hmm. I got my undergraduate there in poli-sci, and I got my master's in public administration from there as well. I moved there while I was going to college, and then I ended up moving back because at that time I was getting married, starting my career path. And so I ended up ultimately in Visalia.
Very nice. I actually just was in Visalia just last week. I was there speaking to the local division, the League of California Cities, and had a great pit stop at City Hall. Met some very nice folks and got to drive around town a little bit. It's a nice little town. Visalia is great. Mm-hmm. And Kings is great too. So, so you are first Latina, which is inherently female, to serve as the county administrative officer. And not that that's the reason you were selected, but it's historic or milestone, I suspect, for the county. What is the significance of that? And what's the kind of what's your overall, like, the career path of the excitement of getting to sit in the big seat, so to speak?
So it definitely, I feel like, affects, my career path, because as I started growing up, I was first generation born here. My parents came from Mexico in their 20s. So I started grade school really not knowing any English. So being bilingual quickly became important to our household. As a first to go to college, I felt like it was kind of like a door opener. And, younger people in my family are looking up to me now. And, the older in my family, they're saying, wow, it is possible, So I do feel like all those things that are occurring right now, especially, given this position, is allowing the youth to see that there is a path in local government, especially coming from practically nothing with my parents, coming here. And that was really a big accomplishment for me. And I do feel that because of that, it really does impact my decisions, because I know the population, I know the impacts here. We live in very poverty impoverished communities, and so working close to them, even when I worked in Tulare County, it really gave me that sense of pride, knowing that the decisions that we make today are impacting those residents that we serve. Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack there. So first of all, I appreciate the observation about kind of proving that you can make it, right? And I mean, I have to believe your parents moved to America for economic opportunity and for a better opportunity for their child or children. I'm not sure if you're if you got siblings, but so in many ways, you're the fulfillment of their dream that they had when they came to America, right? To see you be successful and become a successful professional is probably like one of the most heartwarming things in their lives to see that happen. So that's certainly exciting. And I think it's a great testament to America, too, that you have that opportunity built for yourself, working hard, right, going to school, but given the opportunity, and you took full advantage of the opportunities in front of you and made it into something, which is absolutely fantastic. It's a great California story, a great American story from that perspective. And I think it's interesting, your comment about having been there in your early childhood for some of those that are in most need of help, especially given the role counties play in health and human services and delivering that, right? It must just give you a very powerful perspective to think about the role that you play in the county for servicing those communities members and, arguably building trust with some of those community members as well, right?
Correct. When I was in my role in Tulare County as economic development analyst, I had to go a lot to do a lot of like door to door, because we had to do, grants, we had to do planning. And we had to meet with the communities because obviously we serve the unincorporated areas. So I was able to, because I spoke Spanish, I was able to listen to them and understand what they were asking for, as being someone who actually received some of the benefits that the county offered when I was younger. It is eye-opening being on the other end, on the recipient end, and then also being on the other end where you're actually making the decisions and helping guide those decisions for those constituents.
Yeah, that's a really powerful circumstance to be able to, it's just powerful. That's just, especially from having somebody who's on the inside now, you have all the inside understanding of how the organization works. You have the outside experience of having been in a circumstance of maybe using some of those services growing up or being proximate to them. So the trust building opportunity there is absolutely immense. And from my perspective as a comms guy, like, trust is one of the biggest deficits that we're facing right now in our society that we need to really address. And I think it's a huge opportunity for you in your work at the county.
Yeah, no, definitely. Even now in my current position, I come out and we get a lot of Spanish-speaking population that comes to get some services here, and they always stop me and ask me, and I'm able to like actually respond back and say, oh yeah, this is what we're doing. This is, so it's humbling too, because I remember when I was a child, going and not knowing, but figuring it out, and that's just what we do. I had to figure it out, and I feel like that's what helped me just kind of keep pushing along through life is, always trying to better myself.
Yeah. So tell me about lessons learned along the way, like your rise up through these organizations and weaving through, like, what's been maybe some of the keys to success in advancing your careers to achieve the CAO position?
That's one thing that I always like to tell folks that are trying to get into, their career path is always, it's okay to take a step back, to take a step forward. And when I mean that, I use an example when I came over to Kings County. I actually had to take a little bit of a pay cut, coming to Kings County in the position that I was going in. And it was a career moment. I was like, do I want to do this? Do I want to, kind of, do that? But ultimately, I wanted to learn the administration. And this was an opportunity. There was a longtime CAO here at the time in Kings County. And I said, you know what, I want to go work there because I want to learn from the best. And I've always been around mentors, and it's good to learn from those who have been in positions for a long time to learn, the ins and outs. And so, I took a step back, but look, it ended up working out for the better for me.
Yeah. Two things from there that I always talk about my firm. One thing I talk about my firm all the time is ABL, always be learning, right? And so you got to have a kind of a learning attitude if you really hope to be successful, right? And part of being a good learner is to be humble enough to know you have things to learn, right? You have to be humble enough to say, I need a mentor, or there's something I can learn from this other person. They aren't just some, they're like some old codger who doesn't know anything anymore, because they know things. They have wisdom, and injecting wisdom into you at a younger age is an immensely powerful asset to have. And then the second one that I love about hearing you describe there is kind of this idea of delaying instantaneous gratification, i.e. maintaining compensation levels and sacrificing that a bit for the opportunity of experience. Because, the sooner you can acquire that experience in your career, the many more years you have of your career left to actually leverage it and put it to work for you, right?
Right. So, yeah. And that's what I always kind of tell is don't get discouraged if there's an opportunity that you don't know that's there, but you think you could do it. I took that leap, and it was the best decision I made. And honestly, I love Kings County, moving from a large county to a small rural county, it was really beneficial to see, because you had to wear so many hats, because, you have less resources. And again, that played a big part in my growth here in the county. And so I will always be grateful for that. So I always remind those who want some advice, I always say, hey, it's okay to take a step back if you're going to take a big leap forward.
Yeah, I like that. So you've rebuilt your team, right? Or you've had to build out some of your team there in the office, because you clearly, when you elevated to the CAO role, you had an assistant CAO role position you had to fill.
So currently right now, I do have a recruitment out for a deputy CAO. So that is out now. It actually closes, at the end of the week. And so I do have only my two staffers, myself, and a secretary. So yeah, we are busy right now, especially budget. That is a primary function that we do in this office, is prepare the budget for the Board of Supervisors. So we are heavy in that. Although I did put some practices in the last year that really have alleviated kind of working to the last minute. But definitely it's a busy time right now, especially trying to navigate, my previous role into my new role.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a lot of change going on, and then having that open number 2 position can be a big deal. And, I think one thing I should have asked earlier too, how big is the county itself? Like, how many headcount are you dealing with? What's your general fund budget? Just give me, for our audience, to size this up.
So our budget is $423 million. We have about 1,660 employees full time, and our population is about 150,000. So we have 4 incorporated cities. So we are considered a rural county in the demographics for the state of California, but nonetheless, we are a very conservative county, and we do hold a lot of, our budget there.
So that's good size. I mean, that's a lot of people, 1,600 plus people, is a lot of people, and a big old budget to have to administer and manage. What's it like recruiting these days? I mean, I talked to a lot of executives in your role. I mean, you have a recruitment out right now for a position close to you, but in general, especially finding public works folks and line level staff and whatnot. What's been that experience out there in Kings for you?
So that is actually one of the biggest challenges that we're facing is the recruitment and retention. Because again, how I mentioned, we are a rural county. We're surrounded by 2 large counties, Fresno County and Tulare County. A lot of our employees come here as kind of get into the county system, and then they move on to other counties. Mm. And so we have really tried to establish we actually are heavily focusing on right now. We have a employee retention and recruitment committee. We made it up of 10 department heads. We have 22 department heads, and we are in charge. We meet weekly on trying to focus on flexibility, policy change, culture, and everyone in our group has assignment to do. And so it is a big challenge. Also, additionally, a lot of folks aren't going to college now. I believe the college rates are down, and so a lot of positions do require higher education. So fields like licensed attorneys, clinicians, those positions are actually really hard for us to recruit in this area, because you get someone straight out of law school, they go, they want to go to the big city, they want to go to LA, or they want to go to the Bay Area. So those are some of the biggest challenges actually we're facing right now.
Well, first of all, do you have any secret sauce you want to share about what's been some of the good ideas or recruitment strategies you've come up with? Or if you don't want to share them because you don't want to empower your competition, I totally understand.
No, actually, I'm glad you asked. We were learning that changing our policies, because some of our policies are just super outdated. And so, our organization can take a look at those. We're looking at some of the accruals for vacation, the vacation of sick leave. We're even looking at their commitments to deferred compensation. We're also looking at flexibility, rolling out some pilot programs, allowing the flexibility to work 410s. Just a lot of ideas have come out of our employee retention committee.
Where are you at with work from home stuff? How'd that evolve? Because obviously you had to respond to in the middle of the pandemic and create some flexibility. And then on the other hand, I'm sure at some point there was a desire to bring people back to work. So what's been the approach for the county so far, if you can discuss that?
So we actually did roll out teleworking once the pandemic hit. And then we brought everyone back. So, it was okay when we brought everyone back. Everyone, was fine coming back. But now we do have pilot programs going on in our county department. So we have one in child support. We have our district attorney's office or county counsel's office. We are going to roll out something countywide, and it's probably going to be in the fall. It's just that we wanted to get some to kind of work with this summer pilot program that we have going on right now, and then see how that works out and see if there's flexibility there. And if not, we're definitely rolling out our teleworking. But we are one of the counties that don't offer like full-time teleworking to our employees, and I believe other counties do offer the teleworking.
Yeah, well, it's a real conundrum, and it kind of we spent a lot of time thinking about this. We have a division at our firm called TS Talent Solutions that focuses on kind of culture curation, recruitment, and things of that nature. And so we think about this a lot. Our firm is 100% remote. We've been 100% remote since 2013. So we've been at this a very long time and have built from 3 employees in 2013 to the 60 plus we have now. So I've seen that evolution and change. It has consequences for communications, for culture building, for team cohesion experience. And I well understand a lot of desire to bring people back into their seats and get them back into the office and some of those pros. And there's a lot of merit to that. The flip side is when you're in a competitive environment where, say, other counties or agencies are offering remote work and some employees place a premium on that, that's a competitive disadvantage for you in the recruiting world. So even if philosophically you're 100% committed to return to office as an organization, I'm not saying Kings is, I'm just saying in general, you're always going to face that competitive challenge of we might be committed to that, but our employees have a certain amount of decision-making authority. And if they want to go with an organization where they get to work from home, that's their choice they get to make.
Yes, definitely. And that's what we're coming across. We're having employees who leave and say, oh, hey, this other job offers me 100% telework. So, I'm leaving, and so that's where we try to really sell our benefits. We did kind of screen other counties, and we do feel some of our benefits actually are a little bit more a selling point for us. We have an employee health center on site. You don't use your sick time. For our managers, you get 100% your health insurance paid for yourself and your dependents. So we've been real competitive with our benefits. I do believe that our county does offer some really great benefits.
Plus, they get to work for a fancy new CAO. So there's that perk too.
Yeah, I hope that they're seeing that there's a lot of change happening here. I do. And even in the last 3 months, I do feel like my communication, that's one thing that I wanted to really kind of focus on when I took the role, is my communication to the employees and to the public. And, since I've taken office, I've already sent out, 2 massive wide emails to county staff, kind of telling them about some of our changes we're doing. We launched all our social media platforms, which we did not have before. That was Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we've gotten a lot of positive response from that. We've even set up where we know from our finance department who are retiring. So then we have employees who are retiring. So we're trying to kind of highlight those employees, hey, they've worked here for 25 years, and honestly, the feedback we've gotten has been extremely positive amongst the staff.
Well, it's important to recognize the service of those that have been serving the community and pause for that, not only for internal team building culture and respect, but also to showcase for the public at large the opportunities to work at the county, right? I mean, there's good, solid careers that can be made working at the county, doing good work. You can put your head, you can lay your head on a pillow at night, feel positive about the impact you made, and make some money and feed your family and put gas in the car and get on with life. So these are good things to do.
Yes. And, again, like I said, we're really focusing, because that is our biggest challenge, is retention and recruitment. Next week, we're actually doing some videos to try to get some on specific positions, like the attorneys, the licensed clinicians, to try to get videos out there. Hey, there's Kings County. You can get into the public sector. I just did a new hire employee orientation. So basically we do them every 2 to 3 weeks of all the new hires. And we had 30 there. And out of the 30, only 4 came from government. Everyone else from the private sector.
Wow.
So that's really an opportunity there. You're reaching out to members who have never been part of the government, and so to hear that was really eye-opening. I feel like when I first started getting into government, it was really hard to get into government, and the positions weren't always there necessarily, and you couldn't meet the qualifications, and so now we're seeing it's kind of growing.
There's a certain cycle to this all too, because when the economy is pretty hot, government suffers to be able to recruit, right? And then if a recession comes along, suddenly the government looks like a pretty attractive place to work. So there's this element of ebb and flow of the labor force, which frankly is healthy. That's a good sign of a free market, of ebbing in and out of the private sector, public sector side to adjust to the change in the economy and things like that. And we've been on a heck of an economic run for, sometimes, in my opinion, inexplicable reasons, but we've been on a heck of an economic run. So we'll see what happens if the unemployment rate ticks up and whatnot. That could make your recruiting work a lot easier. It'll just create more demand for other services that the county has to deliver as a consequence. What are some of when you say things are going well, with your work from home experiments you're running, is there some metrics you're looking at that you want to gather from that, or how are you evaluating the success of that program?
So we actually do have some surveys that we send out to employees on how they like the teleworking. We've received all this feedback saying, hey, if it were to go away, where you leave another county. And so we are serving the employees where we're figuring out, are they happy in the role, or what are things that we can change in the program. And so all in all, the feedback has been positive. So we're looking forward to launching this countywide.
Interesting. So what's been your favorite part about becoming a CAO? Where was the moment where you're like, this is awesome?
The decision-making piece, the buck stops here. When departments come and ask me, being in the number 2 role and the assistant CAO role, I was always telling, my CAO, hey, this is the recommendation. This is where we're at. Here, I'm the one making that decision, and I'm the one making the recommendations to the board of supervisors. So it's very empowering, and again, humbling too, because of all the experience. And so that is one of the pieces that I do enjoy, also working with departments and figuring out their issues and, how can we make things better, and kind of going through those processes with them. I'm super eager person and as an individual. So, having that on top of it, and I'm also very calm. So I do feel like all in all that allows me to have a very, get close with my department heads and figure out and have them trust me. So those are things that I'm enjoying right now.
Nobody needs a super exuberant, high energy and paranoid executive leader. A little patience and calmness in the storm is always a welcome thing. And every day there's a storm somewhere brewing in county work, from everything I can tell working with my county friends.
Yes, for sure.
But speaking of those storms, so what are the big challenges? Obviously, you talk about recruiting being your number 1 challenge, but from I I guess, a service area perspective, what are your big things you're trying to tackle on Kings that is really priorities for your board of supervisors that you're trying to help them get done?
So there's a lot of unmandated legislation that comes. That's one thing in our office that you have to be prepared for. Is there's a lot of different changes in the state of California that impact us county locally. And so, we just have to deal with that. There is a lot of legislation that can physically impact us as a county. And so having the forefront there, working closely with our lobbyist, those are things that are on our forefront all the time. Just because legislation comes out, sometimes they wrap it into a budget bill. And so we don't know it's actually occurring until, it's already enacted. Mm-hmm. And so trying to kind of scramble and, figure out what are the next steps. And so staying on top of that is kind of one of my priorities as well. It's just because there is a lot of legislation that is unmandated and impacts us at the local county level.
So do you have, is there a legislative tracking function, or is that actually just falling on you as the CEO to actually keep track of that? Or do you work with CSAC, the California State Association of Counties, to keep track of that stuff?
Yes, both. So we work with CSAC. We work with our state lobbyist. CSAC's a great resource for our legislation, all our legislative matters. And so that is just one thing that we have to constantly be working with CSAC. The only thing is that there's issues that impact larger counties that, is not a big effect in our county, vice versa. So that's why we have to kind of just stay aware of things that are changing, because again, a lot of these things, you do an unmandated legislation to a county. Well, you're in a big county, they're able to absorb it. But a county like us, who have a smaller budget, it really impacts us.
Yeah, well, those things can get dramatic very quickly, right? For one of these unfunded mandates that comes along, and all of a sudden you're in deep trouble. So causing all sorts of angst and frustration. Any other, how about, so we can talk about challenges, I guess. What's your most exciting thing you got going on in the county that you think is really positive? Either what's going on in the economy that's big, or changes in society out there, or new adventures that are countywide impact?
So as you know, we have the Tulare Lake has emerged, and it's Tulare Lake, but it actually lives in Kings County. Okay. So we're approximately 90,000 acres flooded in Kings County currently right now. And we had estimated that it was going to be a big financial hit to the county because of that land that's currently flooded. Our assessor is actually going to change the property value to zero, so it was going to impact our revenues. But actually, the tax roll closed 2 weeks ago, and the impact was not as significant as we had expected. So that was great news for us, because we thought that was going to be a really economic downturn for us in the county. But the positive news is the Tulare Lake is still here. It's probably going to be here next year and the year after that. But because the land sits within Williamson Act, which is, land that's not farmed, we are able to live through this episode that's occurring in our county right now.
So I guess there's a bunch of things that I want to unpack real quick, and I'm going to play. Well, I'm not going to play. I am going to be the naive city guy. But so Tulare Lake has reemerged. So this was a dry bed that had no water in it, and it's also not farmed or anything. So it was just like open space effectively, right?
Some area was farmed. So it's all privately owned land. Oh, it is. Yes, it is. And so that's why we can't really get in there in those properties because of it. But we did estimate to have a really loss in those properties, but we didn't. So it's great news. And I know we still have the Tulare Lake, but it's still there. But yes, it was the largest lake west of Mississippi in the 1800s.
And then it disappeared because of drought and I assume irrigation and other policies that used up water resources?
Yes, primarily it was actually farm owners who purchased the property and pumped the water out, and they created a lot of diversion in it. And so there is kind of a lot of theory that, the Tulare Lake could come back and we can have some fight there to keep the lake there. But I don't think that's going to kind of grow really anywhere, because again, it's privately owned land. And so.
Interesting. And so this lake has now reemerged, and theoretically it's providing a bunch of water resources, at least I assume, to the private owners who actually own that property and therefore own the water rights on it.
Yeah, it is impacting our farming right now, where obviously we have more water because last year we were in a drought, and now we have all this surplus of water. Unfortunately, in some areas that were to be farmed, we can't farm it, so we lose the work there. Those agricultural workers are moving, went elsewhere. We did talk to our Farm Bureau, and they said, usually when an episode like this happens where they can't no longer work, they just end up going to another county. So we are losing that and all. But overall, we are grateful that it wasn't as large as impact. Also, because of the Tulare Lake, the state was able to step in and give us funding, approximately $21 million, to build up the Corcoran levee, because there was talks about a city, potentially flooding. And we have 2 state prisons there, so we had about 1,000 inmates. And so that was like on the forefront of us. And, we even had the governor come to Kings County, and we ended up getting funding for that Corcoran levee to raise that levee up so it could hold the water.
So I assume that work's been ongoing, try to be responsive.
Yes, it was just finally built about a week ago.
Wow.
So it was raised about 3 feet. And because of subsidence, there already was a levee there, but because of subsidence, it was actually going down more. And so because of the efforts from the state, and obviously because we had a lot of pressure on the administration, we were able to get some resources from the state. So it was helpful.
Well, so I just want to observe that, it's a big contract and a lot of money, but, given them that all this rain started happening about 8 months ago, and it came through this period, like to turn around, get a contract signed and get that work done in less than a year, like bravo to, government for actually being super responsive in that particular circumstance, right?
Yeah, what ended up happening is that the district who actually managed that Corcoran that levee, they actually started the work without funding. And in hopes
they
that
bet.
Yeah, they were like, hey, like we cannot let this flood, like we have to do whatever. So they were asking for donors, private landowners. We have one of the largest tomato company there out of that area, and so they had asked them for funding, and so that's when we kind of stepped in and we helped them to try to get that that help from the state, and ultimately we did get it. So we were grateful for that. They found it in the state budget, for this year, and we were able to get the $21 million for the Corcoran levee.
Well, that's a huge material impact. I'm sure it saves a bunch of mitigates flood risk, which saves a bunch of farmland, which means we produce food, which means we keep the price of food down, which means, people of all economic spectrums can afford to eat. Like there's all sorts of repercussions here, right, for doing the right thing. So kudos to that agency and to the county in general for helping make sure you were responsive to what could have been a pretty dire situation in the wake of all this massive rain that we've been fortunate enough to get, but it certainly created its own complications.
Yeah, imagine moving. Like I said, we had 8,000 inmates, 2 prisons there, and they were high maximum prisons, and to have to move those inmates, it would have been tremendously cost, to kind of get them out. So, so we were grateful for all that.
No. All right. So as we wrap up here, you got anything else exciting you want to highlight before we bring it to a close?
No, Kings County is always hiring. And so, anyone check us out on Facebook and countyofkings.com, and you can see all the great things that we are doing here in Kings County.
Awesome. And Kyria, for anybody who wants to maybe get in contact with you and ask about work in the county or get to know you better, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
They can just email me at kyria.martinez@co.kings.ca.us. We actually just started an internship program, and we pay our interns. So if anyone's looking for an opportunity here, the sky's the limit here. We want to encourage everyone to come to Kings County. We have, although we're small, we're mighty, and we are close enough to go to the Bay Area, but close enough to the coast. We're just centrally located, and so we always wanted to sell that point to everyone. And the cost of living here is very affordable.
That's music to a lot of ears in California.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, maybe after you finish up the CEO gig in your life, after 20 plus years of doing it, you can become a recruiter, because you seem to be very good at making the recruitment pitch too. So good job.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. And that's today's report. My thanks to Kyria for joining us. From the whole Public CEO team, myself, Ryder, Todd, Smith, thank you for your time. We hope you learned something new and inspiring that will help you in your public service. Remember, Public CEO has a daily newsletter that is free to those who sign up at PublicCEO.com. If you have feedback, questions, or guest suggestions for Public CEO Report, please email editor@PublicCEO.com.